Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President. We've had 3 recent Nobel Prizes in medicine. We've got the medical technology to rank #1. We've got the economic strength to do it, and our surgeons are respected throughout the world. So what's holding us back? Imagine for a moment you contract Lyme disease. Now, if you're in the Hudson Valley in New York, the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, or the Porton Down in the UK, you're going to be fine. They're going to diagnose it quickly, treat you with science, and monitor your recovery with technology. And while it's not going to be fun, you're going to get better. So what if you're far from one of these centres of excellence? You've got reason to be concerned. In basically any city in Bavaria or Germany, you're going to get world-class treatment. They have the same medical protocols as Clinic London in Zurich, Switzerland, so you're going to be treated correctly. In 100 other cities, Oslo, Norway, for example, you're going to get diagnosed and treated correctly for chronic Lyme disease. It simply isn't an issue or a debate for them. The priority is getting their people better in any way they can. But what if you're at home here in Australia? If you contract this disease today in Australia, where we have 8 Nobel Prizes in medicine, including one for the discoveries concerning cellular immune defence, there's 3 reasons you won't get the proper standard of care and treatment. 1, inadequate testing. Our leading medical facilities are more likely to find a rare genetic disorder than Lyme because we use draconian and inferior diagnostic tests. Many people don't even know they have the disease in spite of clear clinical symptoms. There are very few other standard serological tests that have as poor sensitivity and rates of false negatives that our current system uses for Lyme diagnosis. 2, redundant treatment guidelines and restrictions by the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, APRA. There's a new growing body of evidence highlighting that short-term antibiotics don't work in a large percentage of Lyme cases. People are still sick after these short courses, and furthermore, Persistent Borrelia, Babesia and Bartonella do in fact exist. The issue is Lyme and the co-infection's resistance to certain short-term standard antibiotic regimes that use monotherapies and are not pulsed. The new research coming out of Johns Hopkins University shows how various combinations of different antibiotics long-term are able to eradicate biofilm, a kind of umbrella that protects the most dangerous bacteria related to this disease. Interestingly, that researcher, Ying Zhang, did a lot of work around TB, and thanks to that, his research formed part of the guidelines for TB treatment, which we now know needs long-term multi-antibiotic regimes at least of 6 to 8 months. So previously in the case of Lyme, standard antibiotics were not penetrating biofilm. This is one reason why people stay sick. Now, as different combinations of antibiotics are showing effectiveness, we have new treatments, and biofilm protects harmful bacteria associated with Lyme disease. These disease factors are widely accepted and understood throughout every medical institution in the world and are extremely relevant to why we need to treat chronic Lyme disease with prolonged multi-antibiotic and integrated medical regimes. It is unfortunate in Australia we selectively ignored this widely accepted point of view in place of our own made-up ideas, or worse, none at all. 3, Lyme can imitate so many other infections. This can lead to the wrong diagnosis and poor treatment. Everyday GPs in Australia simply do not consider Lyme or co-infections in their differential diagnosis. There is no adequate referral system like there is, for example, in the UK, Germany or Norway. There is no formal continuing professional development education program such as those in the UK with the Royal College of Physicians Lyme e-learning platform. There is no insurance or coverage on Medicare for treatment like there is in the US and Germany. Lyme is tough to fight in Australia, it seems. I can tell you again from the many hundreds of people I've spoken to are suffering in this country with Lyme. These people are medical refugees in their own country. They are sick and getting sicker. They have difficulty in getting treatment. A number of these people, brave people fighting this debilitating illness, made the trip to Parliament House today to attend the launch of the Parliamentary Friends of those suffering from Lyme disease and Lyme-like symptoms. This was an extraordinary meeting. Sydney Dr Richard Schofield compared Lyme in Australia today to the early instances of AIDS in this country. Lyme is unrecognised, it is spreading quickly, and the medical profession is behind the 8 ball, Dr Schofield told us, mainly because of bodies like the Australian Medical Board and the Australian Health Practitioners Regulation Agency. We are not even chasing the Lyme target. Despite their denials, these two organisations are identifying doctors who are treating Lyme and making conditions so difficult for many they're being forced to give up their practice. People are dying from Lyme disease, from its symptoms and consequences, and from suicide. Recently, I attended a funeral in Queensland for a young man who took his own life. One of his final acts was to make a submission to the Senate inquiry into Lyme disease and Lyme-like illnesses. He did this. He drove to a park, away from friends and family, and then he hung himself because of the hopelessness of his situation. Families are being brought to the edge of bankruptcy because they're being forced to seek out high-costing treatment overseas in an effort to help their loved ones. Go to the Senate inquiry homepage, read the submissions and wonder, like I do, how this can be happening in Australia in the 21st century. Madam Acting Deputy President, the young Queensland man's suicide was the third I've heard of in recent months in relation to this disease. And this disease is treatable. So here we have a condition that is relatively easy to get through no fault of your own or negligence. It's not like smoking, heart disease or obesity. You can get it from ticks and other insects, even bed bugs. It can send you on a downward spiral of increasing debilitation, and it's treatable. But it can't be treated in Australia until it is accepted by our medical community. Once Lyme is accepted, it can be diagnosed. Once it's diagnosed, it can be treated. Right now, none of these things are happening in this country except by a small handful of doctors. Chronic Lyme and co-infections can be diagnosed and treated. It is not the character of this nation to sit idle and let problems continue uninterrupted. When we see real problems and suffering, Australia doesn't shrug its shoulders. We rally, we stand together, we do the right thing, even when it's the difficult thing. And what we definitely don't do is allow ourselves to let an overwhelming number of people, thousands and thousands of people in this country, to continue to suffer. Madam Acting Deputy President, this is not a made-up illness. If you're looking for proof, leading Lyme doctor like Dr Richard Schofield in Sydney can offer you the science to disprove any opposition to any aspect of this disease. I've personally looked into this from both sides and I've kept an open mind. And when I followed the line of logic from the naysayers, things just don't stack up. What is consistent in my experience is the opposition to this disease by those with the same dogmatic attitude. I think they might be fused with a belief system that is no longer relevant to medicine in 2016. But what worries me more is that they aren't open to talking about it. I want to hear the arguments. I want to understand them. But very few of these doctors want to openly debate. I'm talking about the doctors that say things like Lyme isn't a real disease, or it's all in their heads. They're quite happy to say these things to throw them defensively out into the atmosphere, but then do very little to back it up, and that's a shame. because they're most likely to be the talented doctors who could contribute to helping people. And that's where it goes wrong, Madam Acting Deputy President. It's as if the debate, the denial and the anger take over from what is really happening and what we should really be doing about it. And that is, we have a very large percentage of our own population all presenting with similar symptoms and who are all chronically ill, but we are doing nothing about it, which raises the question, what's the right thing to do? New and advanced treatment protocols are available today, with a select number of medical institutions leading the way, some of which I've mentioned previously. We have to get these into the hands of GPs, and we have to allow our GPs to treat appropriately in regards to chronic Lyme, just like they do in the Hudson Valley in New York. We have to accept and acknowledge the disease. We have to announce to our medical community, drink a lot of fluids and it's all in your head, and no longer acceptable advice to those who are suffering. This is important because bacteria from Lyme can linger for months, undetected, and return unmonitored to attack the central nervous system in the brain. Lyme affects how people think and act. So yes, maybe the naysayers are technically correct. It is in their heads because Borrelia lives in the brain tissue. It's important that when we think of Lyme disease, we don't underestimate the co-infections involved, taking in the full immune compromised state most patients suffer with. This is an extremely complex disease that floors each individual. Which individuals? Authors like Amy Tam, who wrote The Joy Luck Club, models like Christy Turlington, singers like Avril Lavigne, actors like Alec Baldwin, Ashley Olsen and Richard Gere. The list goes on. And we're in Parliament, so let's not forget George Bush had Lyme and was treated in Washington by the top Lyme literate doctors there. Closer to home, how about Australian tennis pro Sam Stosur, who chose to get treated with prolonged IV antibiotics, not in her home country, but in the United States. Lyme disease is not only transmitted by ticks and other insects, it can be transmitted by sexual contact or through the womb, or through a blood transfusion. So again, Madam Acting Deputy President, what's the right thing to do? First, join the fight to have Lyme disease recognised in Australia. And today I presented a change.org petition on this very subject to the Office of the Health Minister Susan Ley. It has more than 41,000 signatories. Australians are waking up to the Lyme epidemic. Australians are saying, not on our watch, we don't let our people suffer in this country if we can prevent it. Second, doctors and patients have to be free to choose the treatment they think is appropriate based on the precedent of overseas successes. When people are sick and the need for the right treatment, we need to step away from the litigious defensive mode of medical care and move to a standard open form of care. Madam Acting Deputy President, we need prolonged treatment for Lyme patients, monitored by doctors with reports on patient progress. As the Medical Innovation Bill in the UK announces, we need greater clarity and certainty to patients and doctors at the point of treatment, and not forcing them to wait for the unpredictable outcome of possible litigation. If we continue down this road of litigious pursuit of those trying to help, it's bad for GPs, it's bad for APRA, it's bad for Australia. But most of all, it's bad for the patients. Third, we need more research and education. We need more research on ticks and the unique strains to Australia, and a national education campaign warning the population of the dangers. Madam Acting Deputy President, in conclusion, our medical system has a huge gap in it, and we're behind the rest of the world by years. This puts our citizens, friends and family at risk, and for some, causes them to suffer needlessly. We have a treatable disease here which has been overlooked by the bureaucracy. collectively we can change this. Is there a calculus of human life such that one person should receive medicine while another shall not? That one condition should receive research dollars and another shall go wanting? We need a national Lyme treatment program in place as a matter of urgency. Thank you, Madam Acting Deputy President.
Thank you, Senator Madigan.